Today I'm going to be showing you my top guitar making tools. These are my favorites, my current best tools ever. This does change over time, but right now these are the tools that over the 25 plus years of my guitar making career have risen to the top. They're the ones I reach for the most on a day-to-day basis. They're the ones that help me do my best work, remove some creative friction, make things easier and make it more enjoyable and just make it more fun. And I'm hoping this video will be helpful for you if you're looking for some new tools as well. Before we jump in, I just wanted to mention one quick little thing. So to define the best tools. As I was putting this together, I was thinking, what makes these the best tools? What does that even mean? And as I alluded to a second ago, for me, it means the tools that I'm most comfortable with, the tools that just seem to make the processes easier for me. They fit my personal working style, the techniques that I've become accustomed to over the years for various reasons. And and with all that in mind, this is important because each luthier is going to have a different list of the best tools for them. And so as you watch this, just kind of file that in the back of your mind. You're looking for the ones that are going to just seem right and feel right for you. And that's why videos like this, I think, are really helpful, because you can watch different luthiers sharing the tools that help them the most and sort of leverage their experience with those tools and help you kind of narrow down which ones seem like they're going to be the perfect fit for you and could potentially make your best guitar making tools list at some point now or in the future. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump in. I pulled out, I was originally trying to go for about 10 tools, but I think I exceeded that pretty far. But I just wanted to grab the ones that really kind of make a big difference, and that every time I pick them up, I'm just kind of a little happier, So let's just jump in and let's see. We'll start with something simple. So the first little tools to look at here are these little dogleg chisels. This is just a little 4 chisel set, and each one is a different size. They're just fantastic little tools. It might seem like a simple little thing that might not be necessary, but it seems like every day I'm grabbing these for something. In fact, on my tool wall over here, I've got a little spot that I can literally just reach over with barely even moving, grab the tool and start working, because you're always doing things like cleaning out a nut slot or a saddle slot, or maybe cleaning up the inside of a little inlay pocket, all those little delicate things where you've got to really fine tune the fit of things or clean out a really precise corner. These tools are just absolutely essential, in my opinion. I absolutely love them. Really great. And by the way, links to all these things I'll put down below. And also, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but I do have I forget what it's called. It's like the ultimate guide to Luthier Tools or something like that. It's over on theartoflutherie.com. There's even a free PDF you can download when you join the free newsletter. So I'll put the links to that below, the links to everything else we mention here in the description as well for you. Just want to make sure I said that before I got too far. The next thing is, let's take a look at this. So fret tang nippers, and I'm pairing these two together because I use these together kind of as a set. I've got the deluxe fret tang nippers from StewMac, and this is another StewMac tool, which is the fret end file, I think is what they call it. And together these really help me when I'm doing bound fingerboards, which I pretty much always do. But you probably know that when you do a bound fingerboard, you've got to trim the tangs from the bottoms of the fret beads so that they don't show on the ends of the fingerboard, I guess, so that the fret bead can sit on top of that binding. And I've tried various fret tang nippers over the years. I even started out with no fret tang nipper, where I was just manually filing those things with a file, and that's a really hard way to go. But you can do it if you have to. And that goes for all these things. You don't need these tools. They're just really nice to have when you're ready to get them and add them to your collection. Now, one of the things I love about this is I started out and did many guitars with this kind of fret tang nipper. When I finally was able to get one, this is what I got. And this is great, and it was a great improvement over filing them manually, but the shape of it, for some reason, I would always get sores and like blisters on my hands if I tried to do multiple guitars worth of frets in a day. And so I would space them out, and it was always kind of a not so fun process. But this one is designed so much more intuitively and effectively, and I can cut as many frets as I want. I've used it on the Evo fret wire, the gold fret wire, regular nickel silver fret wire, cuts them like butter. I haven't tried this yet on stainless. I don't do a lot of stainless fret wire, but my gut tells me it'll be perfect for that too. Not only is it more comfortable because of the handle design, you have a lot more leverage because of the way this is designed, so it's easier. You're not using your grip strength as much, and you don't get as fatigued, but it also does a better job of trimming that tang down, which means you have less to file when you're done. So typically I'll cut the tangs, and then I'll come back with this little file. And what's so cool about this, this is actually made for rounding over the fret ends after they've been beveled, after they've been installed on the guitar, to make it comfortable, which is a really important step. I talk about this in my Fretwork Mastery 2 course that's part of the Luthier's Edge. You've got to get those fret ends feeling really comfortable. It makes a big, big difference in the way a player is going to feel when they're playing the guitar, if they're going to love it, or if there's going to be that one little thing, those sharp frets are just making them not feel quite right, you know? But I use this also for trimming, for filing away that extra little bit of the fret tang after I've done the tang nipper. And it's so cool because it has it's got a rounded edge on one side, it's got a flat edge on the other side, and both of those ends don't have any file teeth or file area there. They're just smooth, which makes it so that you can get in the corners, like filing the fret tangs and places like that, and do it in a really controlled way. And the file, the teeth that are on here are actually very fine, which makes it easy to get those fret beads to be really smooth and perfectly filed so they sit just right and look really clean on your bound fingerboard. So amazing little tool. I'm talking a lot about this one little tool, but it does make a big difference. I have 2 of these, and I use them for a lot of things in addition to this as well. So really great, not expensive, but must-have tool. Best fret tang nipper I've ever used. Absolutely great. This is the Dragon Rasp. If you've seen my other video, I have an entire video on this tool, on the Dragon Rasp, and why I love it so much, so you can check that out. I think there's even an article on the Art of Lutherie you can look at. This tool, and of course, if you're a member of the Luthier's Edge and you took my course on guitar neck carving, I pretty much rave about this tool and use it for most of that course. I was skeptical because it's kind of expensive, but man, is it worth it. This is the large size, fine tooth version, and it has just become my favorite rasp for doing like neck carving. Anything I got to remove a bunch of material and I want to still have control and I don't want wood tearing out and things like that, this is amazing. And again, I won't go too much into it because you can watch that other video if you want, but this is just a fantastic tool. It's my #1 rasp for things like that. And I actually pair it with this little Nicholson adjustable handle. I didn't think this would be a nice combo, and I talk more about this again in that other video, but it's really cool because you can just pop this on there if you want to use it, and it tightens down like that. And so you can use it, you know, if you're working on a big area and you need to really get some muscle into it. And then when it's time to refine things, you can just pull that off and you can just very easily hold it like this and, you know, do some more finessing and refining as you're getting things just right. So it's just a really great combo. So this is another combo tool combination that I love. The dead blow fret hammer and the fret press. I like to use, you can use these separately. Like a lot of people will just hammer in their frets. A lot of people will just press in their frets. I do kind of maybe an odd type of combination where I press it in first and then I do some hammering as well. And I have like a whole little system for that, which you can see in my course. Fretwork Mastery 1 is the course, I think, for that. It's just a really, both of these tools individually are fantastic tools. When you press in the fret, what I love about it is that The fret doesn't have a tendency to bend or get ends popping up or anything like that, like sometimes can happen with a hammer. And it just seats the whole thing in there perfectly. It's just a fantastic way to do it. It's really fast, and it's a really great thing to add to your arsenal of tools when it comes to fret installation, especially on new guitars. And they make a version you can use for refrets and stuff as well. But if you're hammering, and if you like to still do some hammering like I do, then a little dead blow hammer like this is better. It's got a little buckshot in here, and it absorbs some of the impact so that it doesn't bounce. And when it hits really flat like that and doesn't bounce, that really helps to keep the fret seated so the fret doesn't spring back up, because a lot of times that causes issues if your hammer's bouncing off the fret like that. There's a little bit of a technique to the hammering part, but this makes it much easier. It'll shorten your learning curve, especially if you're getting started with hammering in frets. But I like to combine the two together, and that works best for me. Let's talk about this little ruler right here. Now, if you are part of the Art of Lutherie, if you're a subscriber to the free Art of Lutherie newsletter, then you know about this already, because we featured this in was it the most recent? I don't know, one of the very recent newsletters that I just published. And if some of those have web versions, which I'll link to below if you want to check that out as well, but I described my whole process of using this ruler and why it's so important. But this is a nut string spacing ruler. You can actually use it for the nut or the saddle, but it helps you get the proper spacing of your strings, which is actually a really important refinement if you want your guitars to look professional and you want people to just feel as comfortable as possible when they play it. The weird issue is called proportional string spacing versus equal string spacing. Just briefly, if you space your strings according to the center lines of the strings, when someone looks at your guitar, if you've cut the nut slots that way, it's going to look all messed up and sort of out of whack, because the differing diameters of each string causes them to look closer or further away from each other, right? So the low strings, even though the centers are in the same spot, the low strings are going to have less space between the strings because of the bigger diameters. And so what this does is it makes it so you don't have to do the math, which I love, and you can use this to lay out the nut or your string spacing at the saddle, and it'll do it in a way so that the distance between each string is equal, and that's really important. That's called proportional string spacing. Anyway, I'll link to the article if it's live on the Art of Lutherie if you want to learn more about the whole process, but I'll also link to this tool on Stu Mack's website. They've got some good information about it as well. Awesome little tool, saves so much time and just adds that extra element of refinement and professionalism to your nuts and your string spacing and stuff like that. You can't have a best guitar making tool video without the Lee Nielsen, or is it Lie Nielsen or Lee Nielsen? This little low angle plane. I love this little block plane. It is absolutely fantastic. I'll link to this one below. I always forget if this is a 102 or a 104. I can't remember the number of it, but this tool, I mean, I don't think you can have a more perfect hand plane, like a little block plane, than this for guitar making. It's just ubiquitous. You'll see just about every luthier that you see building guitars, they're gonna probably have this tool. Professional luthiers, because it's just the perfect size, it's the perfect weight, like just everything about the way it's built is really nice. The blade is fantastic. It's got a really narrow opening here and a very low blade angle. And the small opening and the low blade angle make it so that it's way less likely to chip and tear out figured wood, which is a really big deal for me because I do a lot of flame maple stuff for my arch tops, and just so good for countless operations. Amazing tool. And while we're out doing planes, let's just talk about this one as well. So this little guy here it's funny because I think I overlook talking about this sometimes. A lot of times if I'm talking about doing arch top carving or something like that, I'll often mention this one. This is the Angelico Plane, which was made by Luthier's Mercantile. Unfortunately, probably not available anymore. I hope somebody comes out with another version of this. And if you're watching this and you know of a different alternative to this plane, I would love to know it, so leave it in the comments. I started out using the bigger Ibex version like this, but This one for roughing in, like taking the bulk of the material off of the arch top, it's absolutely great because it has this comfortable place to put your palm. That being said though, once I have the bulk of the material roughed in on the arch of the guitar, then this is the middle ground between the larger hand plane and the scraper, you know? So that's my process, is basically going from roughing it in with a larger plane like this, then I move to this little ibex finger plane, do the refining and smoothing with so much control, and this almost never chips in figured wood. Such a handy little tool. And then from here I go to scraping. And so it makes a nice even transition. Whereas before I discovered this and added this to the workflow, I would go straight from this kind of a plane to scraping. And that's kind of a hard transition sometimes because of, you know, it's just harder to make it because this leaves a rougher surface. And this one is just so good for doing that really fine work of finessing those archings and recurves and getting into tight places and things. And I also use this pretty much every day for many other operations, such as the sides of the guitar. So when I'm preparing the sides of the guitar to do the doming, you know, with a radius dish, I can let my fingers glide along the edge and I can take off material that way too, which is super handy, makes that a lot faster. And just a great tool. Did I even say what this was? This is the Ibex 10mm violin finger plane. Fantastic tool, absolutely awesome. So the next thing is this. This is called a Hacklinger caliper. Again, we just talked about this in the free Art of Lutherie newsletter. And this is one of my all-time favorite tools. It literally changed my life. And I wrote a whole issue of our newsletter about how this changed my life when one day, this is very early on in my career, someone had brought in a D'Acquisto arch top for me to do some repair work on. And I was able to measure the thicknesses of the top and back and actually take notes on it and begin what became a process where I could learn about how the graduations of the top and back for arch tops or any kind of guitar can impact the sound and the responsiveness and the qualities of the guitars. Let me show you how it works really quickly. So, and I can do a whole video on this later and talk more about all these things. But essentially, it just has a little tiny magnet, and you can, even on a finished guitar, I'm showing you this on a partially carved arch top back that I'm working on, but the magnet goes on the inside like that, and you can actually move this around. You know, and so I can take, so if this were a finished guitar here, I could be taking measurements anywhere on the guitar. So I just pull up on this string until it clicks, and when it clicks, I can look at the little indicator and it tells me how thick it is. And it's just amazingly helpful because you can not only learn from other instruments that you come into contact with that come into your workshop, but you can take detailed notes on each guitar you make, which is what I do, and then you can understand how the thickness of the top or back impacted maybe the direction that the guitar went, which is so helpful. Can really speed up your workflow and really kind of gives you peace of mind while you're working too. Because when you're first making guitars, I don't know about you, but I was always so scared that I was gonna be making it too thin. And now if I ever have that feeling, I can just pull this out and check it. And almost always it's like, you know, I feel like I was sanding off a ton of wood and it was like 1/10 of a millimeter, you know? So Hacklinger caliper, amazing. And they just came out with a less expensive version of this too, which I'll link to below, which is really, really great because it was crazy expensive before, but the patent just ran out on the original version. Okay, let's keep going. Fret crowning file. This is my favorite one still to this day. And it's funny because I don't see a lot of other people talking about this one, and I think a lot of people may not like this particular fret crowning file, but I love it. Instead of using a file tooth, it has a diamond coating, and it has two different grits. It's got a 150 grit and a 300 grit, and you can, my basic process is I rough in the fret crowning with the 150, and right before it's done, I switch to the 300, and I can bring it just right into that sweet spot where the fret is perfectly crowned and just perfectly tuned. And then, because of the diamond grit, the scratches are very minimal, and it's way easier for me to bring that up to that beautiful final shine on there. So really, really a great tool. I started out using this type of fret crowning file, and I wonder if maybe the ergonomics of being used to this in the early days made me like this one a little better. I never could get used to, you know, I tried this one for a while. This also has a diamond coating, which I was interested in, but the shape, I just couldn't get used to it. And I could never get used to the shape of this one either. But this is a perfect example of how you're looking for the best tool for you. Because even though this is great for me, you might prefer a tool like this, and a lot of people love this one. This is the StewMac Z, the Z file by StewMac. And so this is kind of a different sort of approach. It's a different ergonomic setup here, but a lot of people love this one, and it is a great tool. But I'm kind of stuck in my ways with this guy, and I really like it. So I'm just illustrating that because I want to make sure that you're thinking about this in that, through that lens of which one is the best fit for you and your style and you feel most comfortable with, because those are the tools that are going to make you feel confident, help you do better work, and make it more enjoyable too. Okay, so speaking of diamond cutting files, I've got to show these. These are probably one of my favorite tools. One of the best, biggest, most impactful tools that I've gotten in a while. And maybe that sounds funny, but they are just absolute magic. These are the, oh, I forgot the actual official name of it. Is it called Diamond Cut nut slotting files from StewMac? They're just so nice. They're crazy expensive, but they are absolutely just phenomenal to work with. I love them because they just cut so smoothly, and the best part about it is they cut fast too, but not so fast that you don't have control. It's just like this great balance where it's smooth, it cuts quickly, but it's like I feel like I know exactly when I need to stop the depth of the cut, and the ergonomics of it did take me a little bit to get used to because I'm now holding it here compared to my older StewMac files from back in the 90s. Where you, again, this is the kind where you're holding sort of back here. This is a change of ergonomics where you're kind of up over it a little bit more. And it is a little different, but once I got used to it, I just love it. And it's such a huge improvement. But here's the biggest reason why these are so good and why they're worth the extra money to me is because, well, let me describe it this way. When I used to use these files, and these weren't bad, I made many guitars with these, but the problem is that the slot, the shape of the bottom of the slot in the nut as you cut it, it's not perfectly round and it's not perfectly smooth. And so when that happens, the string can have a tendency to get stuck. And I'm sure you've tuned a guitar where the string is like squeaking and creaking and like getting snagged in the nut or something like that. And a lot of times that's because the shape of that nut slot wasn't properly formed. Now there is a little workaround I used to use where I would take a little piece of 600 grit sandpaper and wrap it over this and do the final couple passes in the nut slot with that. And usually that was enough to smooth it out and kind of correct some of that. But when you're using one of these diamond files for that, it's just perfect every time. When the string goes in, it's just so smooth, never snags. You don't have to do any extra steps. It's just beautiful. So it's not a necessity. There are workarounds to any tool. No tool is perfect, but this is an example of one of those tools that it's just fun and just makes it fun and helps you speed up your workflow and enjoy it and get better results faster too. So love these, absolutely amazing tools. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about this one too real quick. So this was another one that made a big impact when I got this. When I started building guitars, I only had this for leveling my frets. I used this both for leveling my frets and also for doing the beveling on the ends of the frets. And it's great. When you're just starting out, this is an inexpensive way to be able to do that and to get experience, to understand the technique of what's happening as you're doing your fret leveling and things like that. But when I finally upgraded to this fret leveling beam, it just took my fretwork instantly to a higher level. The main reason, I mean, I guess there's a couple reasons. It makes it more consistent because it's really heavy, so you don't have to push down on it. So that potential inconsistency of using this tool where maybe I applied more pressure to one part than another or something like that, it takes that variable out. And it makes it so that I can focus on just evenly sliding this. And it makes it really easy to do a compound radius as well by doing the leveling along the string paths. And I go into that in my different courses and stuff too, about the technique. I won't go into it all here because this is already kind of getting long. But just this was one of those tools where it just bumped up the quality of my fretwork and everything instantly when I got it. So it's a fantastic tool. Fret saw. Fret saw is ubiquitous, right? I mean, these things we use them for all kinds I use it for all kinds of different cutting. I also use it to cut the fret slots. I do a lot of fan fret guitars. So I'm cutting a lot of different, scale lengths and different layouts for that by hand. And this is amazing. This is a StewMac. I think it's called a Japanese fret saw, but I don't remember the exact name. But once I got this, I was done. It's got a nice, the kerf is perfect. The blade is pretty stiff. I tried Dozuki saws and things like that in the past because I love the tooth of these saws and how it cuts, but they all had too flexible of a blade, which caused other issues. This one doesn't though. It's nice and stiff. It's got a really good spline here at the top that holds everything steady, and the handle is just wonderful. It's so easy to hold. I feel like it feels like a nice chef knife or something almost, Like you can just really finesse things and just really get a good ergonomic grip on it. And if you're cutting fret slots all day, subtle changes like a slightly comfortable handle make a really, really big difference. And this one, I can't recommend it enough. I actually wrote an entire article. It's a Luthier's Guide to Fret Saws, which you can check. I'll try and link that below as well if you want to know more about this and the other saws that I tried and stuff like that in the process. And one other thing. So these are all hand tools. There's one other thing that made a gigantic difference in my work, and these are hand tools, but I'm including one power tool here in this, and I can do a power tool video, and we can dive into more stuff in the future if you want. You can leave in the comments if you want me to make more videos on some of this stuff. But I resisted getting a Festool sander for a long time, and it was actually my students in the Luthier's Edge. They kept telling me, they're like, hey, you really need to get a Festool sander. You're gonna like it, trust me. And I went and looked at the prices and I was like, no way. I've been using my $50 Home Depot random orbital sander for 20 years or however long it was at that point. Why would I spend that kind of money on this thing? And so eventually, so many of them recommended, I was like, okay, I'm gonna see what this is about. So I ended up getting one, and I paired this with my little dust extractor that's under the bench here. I won't get it out right now. This is the Festool CT-SYS or CT-SYS dust extractor that lives under here. Another tool that completely changes the game for me because I can so easily clean between operations. But when it really makes a difference is when it's paired with this, because when I'm sanding, if you've sanded spruce or redwood or cedar to thickness and do the final graduations of your tops, it just puts that fine, super light wood dust everywhere, coats everything in your workshop. You've got to wear all kinds of masks and everything while you're doing it. But with this, there's almost no dust in the air. There's no dust on the surface of it. It's just a joy to use. And one reason I wanted to mention this specific one here is because when I see most people talking about Festool, most luthiers talking about Festool, they usually have the bigger one, the Rotex, I think it's called, which is a larger, more powerful sander. I went for the smaller one. This is I don't have my glasses on, the ETS 125 REQ. Of course, I'll link it below, but it's smaller. The random orbital pattern is really nice. It doesn't really vibrate the surface really hard, especially if I'm sanding a guitar where the body is assembled. Some of the other sanders will just, make so much noise and get so much resonance going on in there that I don't like it. But this size is just so good because I can just hold it like this with one hand, and I can just be working on a top or a back and make these really subtle controlled refinements. The vacuum's taken all the dust out. It's not too loud. Just a fantastic tool. It is expensive, but they definitely made a believer out of me, and this made a really big difference to my keeping my workshop clean. If you've seen my dust collector videos, you know that I work really hard to try to be conscious of my health and make sure that I'm not doing any damage to my lungs or anything, and because I want to keep building for a long time. I got a lot more guitars I want to make, and this has been one of those tools that help me do better work, help me do it faster, and helps me stay a little healthier and keep things clean as well. So I wanted to include that because it's tiny. It's a power tool, but it's almost a hand tool, right? So yeah, so I think that wraps it up for the best tools that I really enjoy and love right now. Maybe we'll do an updated one like this in the future if you guys find this helpful. But yeah, these are some fantastic tools, and hopefully this helped you get some ideas of tools you might want to upgrade to now or in the future. Again, I will link to all this stuff below, and I will also, oh yeah, I wanted to remember to say one more time too, if you haven't yet, consider subscribing to the free Art of Lutherie newsletter. I send out an email every Saturday and share tips and tricks and tools and things. So you can check that out in the links below as well. And also don't forget to go look at my ultimate guide to Luthier Tools, which is totally free over on theartoflutherie.com. And then even as a PDF you can download as well, because it's kind of big and it's nice to look at it offline too. So I think that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be looking forward to maybe seeing you in the next one.